Hey, muy buenas tardes, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And as always, do please allow me to start off by thanking everybody for everyone's words, prayers, wishes, and of course the love you guys share and extend my way. As for your support on helping me get the message out there as much as one does, however, in the hopes that it could reach someone in a positive way. Do know from the corazón, I'm very humble and appreciative to everyone. And before I get into the story, do excuse also, I'm a little bit late on the upload. You guys know I'm recuperating from the heart procedures, and I got family from Cali that came to a different state, and the goal was for me to go out there while I'm recuperating and just get to spend some time with them. And unfortunately, it was 2 days of trying, and it's just not possible right now to update kind of a little bit here on Culiacan, right? It's one faction, Los M's, to be more sincere. They had a big dude busted or someone up there, right? And they've been challenging the government, and the government, even though they know who's who, well, it's just hectic, right? It's like the whole state is blocked from different angles. So hopefully I could in the next couple days. But if not, then you guys know the way I think, then it's God showing that it's just not possible. So, but anyways, today I want to continue off a little bit on my story, right? And the last time I had mentioned to you guys how we have got to Becarranza and the joint in Nayarit, and the treatment, right, we received mainly because of the Beltranes, right, and because well, they were part of Sinaloa, so they knew camaradas were mostly with who we are, right. So off the gate, just from being a Sureño, and none of the vatos that got caught that day for placas sobrepuestas, we couldn't even deny it, right? And first and foremost, we wouldn't, but regardless, it was obvious. I'll just say it like that. And we got our welcoming, right, to the prison for like the first month after they let us out, right? Of course, they had all their little Talibanes looking at us, right? Because the Beltranes had groups of four, right, walking the whole joint, a whole bunch of them, right, and to keep order supposedly in the joint, but basically it was a whole bunch of fools working for the Zetas and for the Beltranes. They were joined as one, right, at this time. And even though a lot of them, you could say they liked us, right, for one reason or another, they still had orders, which was not allowing us to group up. And it was like that for a little bit in the beginning. So again, the way we'd actually converse was in the mornings, like real early. The first thing before breakfast was they let you out, and we used to just grab some guarichi and just walk the football field, right, back and forth. And everybody was still with lagañas in their eyes, so they really didn't pay attention to us. So we would discuss certain things, right? And the main thing that was in our conversation was what had happened with Chango or Mono, right? With the Pili. And because they sent him back to B7, right? Which again, it's kind of like where Judas go, where political individuals from government go to be protected, right? So we didn't know what was up with it. And we're talking about that. And the Pili from Calexico basically, you know, told us that well, things were going to start changing, you know, that El Siete from the Beltranes got there, and it was the homie, right? It's the homie from East Los, and he wasn't going to go against what he was, but he was going to speak up for us, right? In some sense. And also there was an AV, which is rare, right? At least the time where I was down there, I only seen two of them, and one was there from Coco County, right, Mike, and but that they had him down in the oil, and that's rare on its own, to be sincere, because I don't know if you guys recall when I had told you how we went in. You go up to Barambilla, and you go down, and down there's three huge cells, which is supposed to be the whole. Then you go back up to Poblacion, right? And to be down there, you have to pay feria, right, to these cats. Not even the direct family members from the Beltranes were down there. Well, they were sick, you know. Like the sister, she had literally an apartment on top of all medical, and well, you guys get it. They were sick. They were in a joint, right? They were living on the streets. They had their apartment in the prison. But anyways, so again, we didn't have too much time, and basically we just said, we could only be in groups of two, so not to stay far from other camaradas in case of something. Then you guys know how it is to be a camarada, right? We're obligated to jump regardless of us getting stomped in or whatever's gonna come our way. It's just part of what we are wherever we are, right? Well, at least it's supposed to be. But anyways, O was right. Pablo started pulling us in, and basically he was a cool individual. But again, he was known as El Siete de los Beltranes because he held power, and he made it real clear. He was what he was. He respected us and the Pilis, but we weren't on first base, right? His organization came first, which was the Beltranes, right? And with the time, two other camaradas that held power, no, excuse me, three got there, right? Which was Pelon from 18, and like I mentioned to you guys, and Wilbur Pelochas, they call them, got there from Moreno Valley. And Chipis, right? A homie they call Chipis, that he was jefe de Talibanes or sicarios. He got there, so they started easing up, not to a fullest, but Pablo basically allowed the homie Casper to buy a puesto in the back, right? Which like a wood shop, but we were allowed to all get together back there and eat together, and things changed. I'll just and of course, Pilis do what they do, right? When I speak, they got one thing on their mind. They literally do. Because they use that for them to start getting in, to start buying dope and start getting high. Beltranes didn't have a carga, right? So they started getting whacked out. Literally bad. To the point I remember telling old man Richie from El Monte, and I knew I had to choose my words because he's a Pili after all. All it takes is for him to make up some BS and, you know, how things are and nobody gonna question it. But I did tell him, like, hey, you gotta chill, You used to come on, be on your toes and stuff, and now you're forgetting where we're at. And all he said is, I know I gotta slow down, fool, but it was just things that came out, with no meaning, basically, them palabras. Anyways, the point of the story, right? Within time, we were able to meet right there in the entrance with the AV, right? Him and a couple Pecker was with him, and that's how we got his full name, his placazo, his area, everything, and we were ready to run it, right? And everything came good. And basically, that's what I wanted to talk about. How we always talk about honorable and our rules and regulations. And since I started, I said, everybody when you're in Mexico, they don't count. They don't mean nothing. There's different rules and regulations. And it's not cause other people dictate them. Yeah. There's definitely, they play by different rules and stuff. But again, we shouldn't allow that to affect what we are, right? At least I thought so, right? Nevertheless, again, I ran that to Richie's sister in El Monte. They ran that AV oh, with a couple of abejas in California. And homeboy was active. He was sending Holly up there. He was good. Nothing but good came from the conversation, right? So of course, we went about our business a couple times. He came out and, we took a couple laps around the prison and, homeboy did a few years up there in Pelican Bay, right? Is where he got made and came down here and started building up pipeline, right? For himself and for his brothers. And of course that came with the Pilis in Mexico. To a sense, he was working out there in Cuernavaca, right? But he was going through Nayarit, and I guess he got caught. First of all, that was a red flag for myself, right? Because again, the Beltranes just had suspicion, right, on us that we were working for Sinaloa after they had separated themselves, and we were there on their mission, and they didn't know, right? Well, as far as I knew, the ones that we were down there tied up and getting stomped in, none of us had said anything, right? We kept shot. But it was always in the air of what Chango had done and said. And so this dude, he's literally with a whole different organization that Beltranes don't get along, but he's getting like a treatment from them, like something. So that was the first red flag with myself, right? But of course, I just kept it quiet because he was giving dope to the Pilis, and I didn't want to be the one to interrupt it. And well, I just knew better, right? Even though I seen it's going down here, right? Because then Richie started wanting to be getting involved with the Beltranes deeper, and I'll be sincere, we were under orders not just for my family, but for different factions, right? Up there, and I started thinking like, hey, this fool on tweak. We're not supposed to be on tweak, period. But I guess rules don't apply because we're in Mexico, right? And he's on this stuff, and he's starting to get too close with them fools. And that tweak's gonna have him talk. I'll be honest, that's what's going with my mind, but you guys know I was a follower, right? Sureño. So I could just had to follow suit, up until the point where things hit the fan, you know, and it was going to hit the fan bad because if Richie did that, we were going to get pulled back down, and probably this time we weren't going to get pulled up because he was, you know, at least myself, and other camaradas, we weren't getting that close. We were basically doing our thing, and but nevertheless, it was like a gusanito in my head, right, about the individual. So I want to know why they were protecting them so much, right? So, you know, I kind of had a visit, and I had someone run it, and everybody had knowledge of this, including the AVs over there, the Pilis here, and even the Pilis he was helping on the streets. Like Evo and Darrow and Sapo. There was a few, and this individual was plugged in, but he was plugged in with government, right? He was moving material, and but his main thing to make feria for these cartels was trafficking organs of children. You see, it was real clear on the news, right? That an abeja from California got caught going through Nayarit, got stopped by you could say tránsito, right? In the periférico. They pulled him over, they opened his trunk, and he had dead children there. Coolers and, well, you guys get it, right? I don't want to get into details of that. That's because that's beyond scandalous, right? I wish I could say what I feel, but guys, that just not boils my blood. But the one thing I wanted to do was knock his head off. But I knew it was a death from the gate, not only for my career because of the Pilis, but also because of Beltranes, because he was giving them feria. So, you guys know I was never nobody, but when I was in Corcoran, Mickey was there, from the AVs, and just say we built a relationship, but, not to that extent, but respectful, right? We did some things, I'll just say it like that. So we had a contact with each other. So I requested if he had knowledge of this, and he just told me, like, look, that happens in Mexico. Nobody out here really trips but was what we're receiving out here. And just keep that on the hush, because again, it's our business and we're okay with it, right? Nobody has knowledge of it here on the streets but certain individuals. So I was like, man, that just goes to show, that well, at least myself, right? I did almost 24 years believing this rules and regulation, or that we were something. At the end of the day, while I was in California, right, in the system, there was little issues like them protecting foods with R's and things like that. But it was always that thing in your head that maybe they show the paperwork and they're not just paying, but maybe there's something there, right? That they're allowing it. Try to fool yourself, or I was trying to fool myself to keep thinking it was solid, but when it was this obvious, it was like, again, the closest one I was with, at least in Torica wise, right, was with O. And I remember we were in the cell, and I told him, like, hey, with all due respect, I want to knock this fool down. And he said, you can't. First off, you knock him down, these cats ain't gonna just take you out. They're gonna pull us all in and take us out too. Because they know who we are and who you are. Basically, they're gonna say it came from us. I told them that that homeboy is going from town to town, kidnapping kids and dissecting them and selling their organs. And he's playing plazas, but do you know it's basically his who comes from that, not from the material he's getting. Of course, he has the angles, because Feria talks in Mexico, right? And he said, yeah, we know, but it ain't our business. It shouldn't be your business. So I told him, well, look, with all due respect, I'm here till the wheels fall off for you, for the causa, but man, don't ever ask me to even look at this individual. And he just said, just leave it alone. And I wasn't gonna leave it alone. I'm sincere with you guys. I wasn't. I was gonna figure out a way to basically take him out and see if I could take someone else important like Blas Leiva or Diego. Certain individuals that were high targets from the Beltranes there. Just trying to finesse it. My stupid mind was in that mindset. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it count both angles, right? Even though they're probably gonna speak of me as piece of you guys know what, because I took money from them, from the abeja. So, but it didn't matter. To me, the type of individuals doing that and still getting a pass, and not just a pass, but they're holding high regards for what they're bringing to the table. But again, it's not happening where the public knows in California. So you're in Mexico, go ahead. Just don't forget about us. Whatever you do, handle it. To me, it was BS, right? Because it goes against, I am what I am in California, Mexico, China, wherever I'm at. You're bajando bandera, period. Anyways, as I left those, I don't know, within a day or two, Homo paid its way out again. Mexico, you could pay your way out of anything, right? I mean, Homo got caught with the gang of dope from a different state on the La Beltranes with children's organs and bodies in his trunk. And he was there for like a month. And what I thought at one point I had to bring to the Pilis and to help, which was take out a dirty individual during basically staining, right? What we believe in California, which is not valid no more, right? I was the dummy. It was just one of them heartaches, right? To see basically put up and shut up. You have no option. And you guys know I was that coward. Could have been doing whatever, but at the end of the day, I didn't have that backbone, right? And I say this to basically put out that message, right? That don't go in and waste your life for something that since kids were brought up believing to the bone we have to follow. And you follow, you see, you could be like me. I don't regret what I did for my neighborhood to get me in prison, but everything from prison forward, everything was just a myth. I was lying to myself. As I head through, everything was cool when I went through Raul. I was boogieing, I was picking up Clecha, but little by little, seeing how people were shielding people, protecting people, moving on camaradas for no reason. And came to Mexico and, you know, again, this happened. I had already been busted and I had seen how they working with government down in Mexico. Even pilis and camaradas, which that could be understood, right, to an extent. But working with children kidnappers and to take children out and take their organs and still be okay with it is, again, I was weak and stupid, right? Because I was on the streets. I could have just said, "I te ves," but my pride would not let me, right? I was what I was, and to do so, my name was gonna go up. Like, well, you guys get it. Anyways, just don't live in that myth, you know. Don't waste your life for something that, believe me, I sat 14 years in shoes, and man, I don't know how many times I was there, literally going around in circles, trying to make sense of things. But at the end of the day, if you were real with your, if I would have been real with myself, what applies for us to follow just didn't make sense. It's just a myth police, a misled. So don't believe whatever they feed people or that haven't gone to prison to go earn your stripes in prison. Earn your stripes for yourself and for your family. Believe me, you're gonna hit a fence of reality that you're gonna be stuck in a regret of not pleasing those that are really there and being stuck in manning up to things you know they ain't right. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. Gracias.